Hey everyone, Kevin here with Victory 4x4. In this video we're going to be installing our rear strike bumper on our 2022 Nissan Frontier. So we've lifted the truck up in the air, obviously. I've also gone ahead and taken out the spare tire, which would be in this general location. Biggest reason I did that is for you guys to be able to see in here a little easier, but this will help you gain a little bit more access as you're working underneath here if you choose to do so. So with that being said, we're going to move first up here to these three electrical plugs that need to be disconnected before the bumper can be removed. These are all just going to have a small thumb tab like most electrical plugs under the vehicle that need to be pressed in, and then you can pull and separate the plug. So these first two share the same main harness. Those two can be pushed out of the way together, and then this one, there's going to be kind of a mirror image of it over on the other side of the truck that will need to be removed as well. But same style clip, just press that in and pull the two halves apart. Now following back that first harness you undid, you'll see a clip here going into the frame that also needs to be removed. For that you can just take a clip removal or panel pry tool and get behind there and pry straight out, freeing that up for the bumper removal. If you follow this main trailer plug harness along, you're going to have one more of these clips that needs to be removed, holding it into the bed. Once you have all of your wiring disconnected on both sides, you can begin the removal of this factory tow hitch. For that you need a 17mm socket and potentially a 17mm wrench to go on the outside over here. And you can start with the removal of the bolts for this tie-in bracket. All you really need to do for now is remove that lower bolt, and this one can come out later once the bumper is removed and you have a little easier access back here. You will have one of these tie-ins on both sides of the vehicle that need to be removed, and then we'll support this hitch assembly with a jack and move out here to remove the remaining hardware. So I've added a clamp to our jack back here to just kind of help secure this hitch in place because safety. And now we can remove the 3 bolts here on each side of the vehicle. I've already taken those out on the other side, so now we'll just take our 17mm socket, remove these 3. And then with those out of the way, this whole assembly can drop free from the vehicle. So with the hitch removed, we can now move on to the bumper mounting hardware, which is going to be these 3 bolts on each side. For those, you'll need a 19mm socket and most likely a ratchet to fit up inside of here. We're going to get these 3 loosened up on each side, and then we're actually going to lower this down just a little bit so that we can properly support the bumper before getting it removed from the vehicle. So with all that hardware removed, you can now slide this back to free it up from its locating tabs and then begin lowering it down. Then we'll take this over to the bench to do some disassembly work. With that out of the way, if you haven't done so already, you can now get your 17mm wrench in the back of the frame rail here and remove these remaining tie-in brackets. The first of which will be this combination trailer plug. Now you will have to pinch the connection here and remove this plug from the back before this can be pushed through the outside of the bumper. And then this is just held in with 2 metal locking tabs. You can fight those and pinch them in with your fingers, or you can just grab a pair of channel locks, which makes that a little bit easier. And then this should just drop right out of the face, and we can retain that to go into the new bumper. Next, you can remove the license plate lights. Now to start off, you'll want to disconnect the harness from the back side of each light. And then each of these is just going to have a single tab that you can press in here from the back side, as well as kind of pushing in that direction. and then you should be able to slide that light and its initial locating tab right out of its location. Next, we'll be removing the two innermost proximity sensors. So you can start by unplugging those, and then to remove the sensor from the bumper, you'll push in from the outside here while pulling out on each of these plastic tabs, and then that should slide free out of the back side of the bumper. With those out of the way, the goal now is going to be to remove this center kind of step plate portion of the trim on the outside of the bumper. So we'll flip it back over where we can access those clips. First off, these two sensor housings, one on each side, can be popped free. Those just have a little tab on the outside, top and bottom, that can be pushed in, and then we can get those out of the way. And then the majority of this cover from here on out is going to be held in with these plastic clips that are popping through this stamped sheet metal portion here. Those just need to be pinched in while you apply a little bit of upward pressure, and they should pop free. To get those to release, you can just grab a pair of pliers and pinch in on the two outside tabs and kind of pull up on this. And then you'll just have to kind of maintain pressure on that as you work your way around the remaining clips. It may be helpful even to kind of wedge a panel removal tool in underneath here so you can work your way along and get these free. So you'll have 4 main clips on the inside of each mounting bracket, and then 2 more here on the outside, with one being kind of tucked down in that hole. And once you get all of those free, you should be able to pull up and release the top side of this. Then if these 2 lower clips didn't already pop free when lifting up on that top trim section, you can just push in on the center locking tabs, and those should be easily removed. So then at this point, it's just a few of those same kind of pinch style clips across this bottom section holding this in place. Now you do not have very good access to those across this lower brace section of the bumper. However, there are a couple small slotted holes in the bottom that you can kind of reach them with a flat screwdriver or a small pry tool to give you a little bit of help in getting those removed here. So use that access as you will and do what you can with that. At some point, you can simply kind of force and pull these apart, as long as you're not planning to reassemble and reuse this in the future. Once you've kind of got those started, it's just a matter of kind of holding the bumper with one hand and pushing up with the other, and this should pop free. Then you'll want to make sure that you're disconnecting both of these wire harness clips along here just to free that up. And then we can move into the removal of these painted outer end caps. The end caps are just held in place with several clips. So you're going to have 2 here, 3 along the bottom, a couple small ones up in this corner, and then kind of some locking tab style clips down on the inside here. The 3 along the bottom, as well as the 2 main ones out on this side, are all the same. They can be removed with some clip removal pliers or even just a flat blade screwdriver. If you get under this tab and simply pry out, you kind of pull the center out, and then the entire clip will pop free. As for the 2 clips here in this top corner, you can get in here with some pliers and kind of pinch those in, and either try to pull the white clip piece off the back, or when you pull out on this top plastic cover, they usually just pop free and kind of fall off onto your bench, kind of freeing up the top section of that. Then as for the remaining clips along the back here, I've already popped this one free down here that you can't see very well, but basically you'll be pulling out on the bottom of this painted end cap while you push in the slotted section of this tab here, which should let it pop past the plastic holding it in place and free it up. Then just work your way along through the remaining tabs to release this panel. With this removed, you can now see why you wanted to have that harness fully disconnected inside of the bumper, so you have a little bit of slack here. And then you can follow the same process as those inner sensors to get this both unplugged and removed from the bumper. So just press in on the thumb tab, pull that connector free, and then release the 2 outside tabs here and pull this sensor back. With the end cap out of the way, you can now unplug the blind spot monitor sensor here and feed this harness back through, which will also allow you to fully remove that harness from the bumper now. At this point, you want to make sure you have those labeled in some way, even just a piece of tape with a marker, so you know which one is driver and passenger side, so we can get them correctly installed into the new bumper. Then, so we can get it installed to its new mounting bracket, we're going to remove this sensor from the factory bumper using a T20 Torx socket. You can remove these two bottom screws. And then you'll slide the sensor down and out of its mounting bracket. Now on these blind spot monitors, they don't necessarily need to be labeled because they already are indicated by the second letter in each part number here on the manufacturer part. Also, I just want to point out that they do have a fairly large do not drop logo up here in the top corner. So with that being said, just use caution as you're kind of storing these and maneuvering them, manipulating them, and installing them throughout this install. Now you can grab your new bumper and begin assembling and installing the things you just removed from that factory bumper. We'll start out by installing these factory license plate lights into their new cutouts in our bumper. Now these are going to install pretty much like they did in the factory bumper. You'll just slide them in using the locating tab and then lock them into place. If you're having any trouble getting these to lock all the way in, you may have to just lightly pry from the backside with a flat blade screwdriver on that locking tab just to open it up behind this material and hold it into place. Then we can get these proximity sensors installed into all 4 locations, kind of using this same method at each location. You're going to find these large grommets in your bolt pack. These are going to go into each round cutout here in the bumper. You'll just have to work that around and into place. Make sure that flange is all the way in on both the outside and on the inside of the bumper so that you have this properly located. And then you'll take the sensor itself and from the inside push it through and into this opening. You may have to just kind of lightly hold the outside of the grommet as you push that into place. And then again, do that with the other 3. One more thing as you're getting these installed, for a little bit of additional retention, you can also add a thin bead of RTV silicone sealant around here and then press that into place. And then as that dries, that'll just give a little added retention over time. Just make sure to wipe off any that might wind up on the face. Then as for color matching these sensors, because obviously truck's red, the bumper's black, you guys are going to run into the same thing regardless of your truck color. What we've found is these are already painted over the top from the factory, so you should be able to kind of lightly dust on a coating of black there and get them color matched that way. Or what we've done on a couple of vehicles is just cut out a small vinyl circle to go over the top of there as well. If you choose to do something like that, just check that your sensors are functioning fully and properly in the bumper before trusting those long term. Then we can move on to installing our pod lights here in the provided light cutouts in the bumper. So always refer to your light manufacturer's instructions as far as getting their brackets installed, the hardware they provide, and how to wire the light. And then you can take that hardware and install this into the slotted tab behind each of these cutouts. And then it's just a matter of getting that centered up in the opening and tightened into place. Then you can find the gray lower trim plates. There's going to be 1 per side. They'll install using the series of holes here along the lower edge of the bumper. And to fasten these in place, you'll use the black 1/4 button head bolts in your bolt pack. So we can drop a bolt in there and use that one to line this up, and then reach in from the back side to install the serrated flange nuts. Once you have all 5 fasteners in place, just grab a 5/32 hex to tighten things up, and then you can repeat this process over on the other side. Now with our bumper kind of prepped and ready, we can get the hitch assembly installed here on the truck. This hitch is also going to serve as the main mounting bracket for the bumper. So you're going to have all your main mounting points back here, and then the bumper will bolt in place on this face. This mounting bracket kind of mimics the factory bumper bracket in the way it lines up and installs here, but also now mounts through the bottom where the hitch was installed previously here on the frame. So through the hitch mounting holes, or the 3 slots here along the bottom, we're going to provide you with new 12mm bolts along with washers to go with those. And then through the side, you will reuse the factory 14mm hardware. So now we'll just have to get this lifted up into place, and you can use this slot again on the factory tab here on the frame. Next, we'll be installing those blind spot monitors into their new mounting bracket here. You're going to see two tabs, one on either side of this. Those are going to lock into the slots here on the mounting bracket. So you can start by getting one side down in. You'll want to line up these two lower mounting holes the best you can with their new threaded hole locations at the bottom before pressing this down and snapping it into place. That audible click should tell you that it's fully installed, and then you can grab two of your number 10 button head bolts from your bolt pack and thread them into these locations. We do recommend a little bit of medium strength Loctite going into these, just because there is a small gap there and you're not going to pinch this in and fully seat it against that material. Once you have both of those started, you'll need an 1/8 inch hex to tighten them up. And then again, those do have a little gap in there, so don't go crazy here. Just kind of snug those down to help secure this in place. Now, these sensor brackets are not side specific, but remember your sensors are, so make sure you have the appropriate side sensor going into the appropriate side of the bumper. And then you can take this with the bracket and your new cover plate, slide it into the back side of the bumper here, get that all lined up, and then install 4 1/4-20 button head bolts in here to hold this in place. This is again a good place to use a little bit of that medium strength thread locker, and then you can grab a 5/32 hex to tighten these up before moving on to installing the wire harness. Now, with pretty much everything installed inside of our bumper here, we can begin routing the wire harnesses back into place. Again, make sure you have the right on the right and the left on the left. We'll start out by removing these factory clips simply because they don't need to be here anymore. They're not going to be used during this final install, so we can get those out of the way. Then from here, you are going to have to do some minor modifications to this harness just to gain some slack between these two wire connectors out here. So this is going to be one for the kind of center park sensor and license plate light. Basically, all we'll be doing here is trimming the electrical tape, kind of peeling back this loom and spreading these out, and then retaping everything. The best and safest way to do this is going to be to find the actual split in this loom. You can usually just kind of feel around and catch that with your thumb, and then you're just going to lightly score the tape alongside that, making sure not to cut down into the wires themselves. And then you can get in here and begin spreading this apart. Once you have it peeled back to this point, just kind of pull this loom off to the side, and you're going to come back up to this Y. The safest way to do this here is to find kind of the factory edge on the electrical tape. You can also very lightly score these, just again use caution so that you're not damaging the actual casing on the wires in here. Once you find the edge, go ahead and peel this back. And then you're just spreading these apart. You can go ahead and lay the wires that kind of seem to naturally route that same direction back in the loom. Then you'll retape this, wrap it all up tight, and then simply add tape back over the 2 remaining wires here. So then what you're left with should look something like this. You could take the time, if you have some available, to add some additional wire loom over here, but this is all going to be tucked up neat inside of the bumper and shouldn't be in a place where it could get damaged. Use your discretion there. With all that done and that being said, we can now route this through the back side of the mount here. There's going to be a cutout opening to run it in behind that and behind the light. Then you can take the first main plug, get it plugged back into the sensor here, and then work your way across with your proximity sensors, and then all the way back in here to your license plate light. With everything reconnected here, you can do the same thing over on the other side, and then we can get this bumper installed. Now, I supported our bumper here on a jack. We've also got it clamped in place so it's kind of as secure as possible. This will be a good time if you don't have a setup like this to grab a friend to help you get this into place. As for hardware on this side of the install, you're gonna find 1/2-inch hex head bolts in your bolt pack along with washers and serrated flange nuts. That's what we're going to use in all 8 of these main outside mounting locations. And then here in the center, you'll be using 3/8 button head bolts along with serrated flange nuts. Something that may help you out during this install is to take a couple of your 1/2-inch bolts and just run them front to back here, just to aid in getting this lined up during your initial installation. However, all of our hardware, both this 1/2-inch and 3/8 stuff, is going to go from the back forward during the final install. Then it's just a matter of getting this lifted up over the mounts and lining up our holes, making sure that we're paying close attention to everything along the outside here and even this flange so that we don't damage any of our painted surfaces along the way. Now, the easiest stuff to start with is probably going to be your 3/8 button heads here, just since they're visible from the outside. So then just get those lined up and start the nuts on the back side, and just kind of get those hand tight for now so that we still have our side-to-side adjustment. Now, from down underneath the vehicle, you can see where you'll have to kind of reach in from the side with that bolt and washer, get it lined up here in the main mount, and then install the nut. And then you can do the same thing for the 3 remaining bolts on this side, as well as the 4 on the other side of the vehicle. You can then loosely install these outer tie-in brackets. There's going to be 2 of these. They are symmetric, so it doesn't matter which one you grab. This outside flange is just going to slip up over the top face of the bumper out here, and then this will line up with 2 holes here on this main tow hitch mounting flange, and then you'll install more of those 3/8 black button head bolts to hold these in place. If you're having any trouble at all getting the hardware started out on this end, you can see this flange is slotted, so you can pre-install the bolts up here and then simply slide that up behind the nuts from the bottom side. Then you just want to make sure before tightening anything up here that these 2 are sitting flat together on this outside flange, which does leave it looking like it's at just a little bit of an angle in here, but that's okay. And then just push it up tight so you get full engagement on your bolts and your slots here. Grab a 7/32 hex and you can tighten these 2 inside mounting bolts up. Before you tighten any further hardware, you're now going to want to take a step back and take a good look at your bumper and its relationship to the vehicle. You want to make sure to check all the clearances around the outside wings out here. Make sure everything looks centered as well as adjusted correctly front to rear. And then one critical location that you're going to want to pay attention to is going to be the relationship between the bumper and the tailgate, making sure you have plenty of clearance as that goes to open on the sides as well as the bottom edge. Once we've done that, we can move forward with tightening up all our hardware. So we'll begin with the main mounting hardware for the hitch assembly. You're going to need a 19mm socket for the 3 bottom bolts here, as well as the 3 factory bolts through the side. You may need to use a ratcheting wrench to get into this rearwardmost bolt here on the bottom. A ratchet and a socket is probably going to work best out on the side, as well as with this rear mounting hardware. Now, tightening these is really what's going to begin to set that side-to-side adjustment of the bumper. So again, take one more look at that, and then you can get in here and begin tightening these up. The serrated flange nut should bite into the mounts here, so you shouldn't need any further tools, but a 19mm wrench is what you'll need if you're having any trouble with those. Now, tightening this hardware is really what's going to begin to set the side-to-side adjustment of the bumper. So go ahead and take one more look at that before you tighten these up. And then again, 19mm socket and wrench if you're having any trouble with these flange nuts not biting into the material here. And then it's just a matter of working your way through all 8 of these main mounting bolts. Then lastly, you can take your 7/32 hex and tighten up the 2 remaining bolts on each wing brace, as well as the 2 here in the center holding the bumper to the hitch. Next, you can grab your trailer plug mounting bracket. This is going to mount in a couple different configurations depending on your preference. So you can mount it like this up above the bottom flange with the trailer plug coming in through here. That's going to be a little harder to access from this side, but the most high clearance option if you're not towing a trailer all the time or you want this to remain up tight. You could also flip it around like so and mount the trailer plug through it just like this, still keeping it kind of high, kind of hidden here under the bumper, but also making it a little easier to access for plugging and unplugging your trailer. This is how we're going to mount it. So I'll take the plug itself and get it snapped into place. And then this will use 1/4 button head hardware between the bracket here and the bumper. So it's going to be a black 1/4 button head bolt from the bottom and a serrated flange nut on top. This mounting location is slotted both front to back and side to side, so set that as needed and then take your 5/32 hex and tighten these up. You can then reinstall your trailer plug wire harness by routing it over the top of your new hitch assembly. With that loosely in place, just go ahead and reinstall the connection here. And then you can do the same thing with both of your outer sensor wire harnesses as well. And then we can begin reconnecting those. Then as you go to reconnect all your wire harness plugs, don't forget the one over on the passenger side. Here we're looking at the 3 on the driver's side. You will have to get these removed from their 3 mounting clips on the frame or get behind those and pry the whole clip out. We found that if you grab a hold of these and pull pretty firmly straight down, those clips pop free pretty easily. Then it's just a matter of getting them all to click back in place. And then you will want to secure these up, preferably using zip ties, probably going to this factory wire harness here or using the small holes in the bottom of the bed. If you were able to salvage and retain this main clip on the trailer plug connection, that one should snap into the bottom of the bed up here pretty easily. As you begin to finish things up here on your install, you're going to need to know whether or not you're planning to install our Adventure carriers. If you are, go ahead and check out our Adventure carrier install video. If not, we're going to provide you with some black plastic caps to install into both the top and bottom ends of your spindle mounting locations here. That's just going to help prevent any dust, dirt, debris, and specifically moisture from getting in there over time and causing that to corrode. And that way you can easily install those later on. So if you're installing those and planning to seal it up, we recommend just some ultra black RTV silicone sealant. Go ahead and just put a thin bead of that around each cap and snap them into place, clean up any excess, and you'll be good to go. We have plans to install some carriers on this one, so I'm just going to temporarily snap these in for now. For those of you not installing carriers, we're going to provide you with a license plate frame as well as a pivot mounting bracket to go on the back of here. You will have to assemble this. You'll use 1/4 button head bolts and nuts, and then the same 1/4 button head bolts to secure it here to the slotted holes in the bumper. You'll tighten those up with your 5/32 hex, and then if you're going to be towing, that can easily flip up out of the way, or when you're not towing, you can flip that down for a nice clean look. So that pretty much does it for this install. If you guys have any questions at all about this bumper installation or anything else we offer here at Victory 4x4, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always send us an email at info@victory4x4.com or just give us a call at 269-459-8447.